So we're gonna get to eventually be in 2 Samuel 5:17 through 25 today. But the theme for this message came from Bryce. He's not listening.
Bryce.
But as you guys know, I told you about last week how I kind of asked, like, Bryce, what do you want to preach about? And he said, he goes, preach about rocket power. And I was like thinking, I could do rocket power. So we're preaching a little bit about rocket power today, because when Bryce and I play, I'm always Otto and he's always Twister. But the theme of rocket power, the song goes, we're riders on a mission, action kids in play position, rocket power. We're riders on a mission, action kids in fun condition, prepare to count down, rocket power. So, aside from it being an amazing cartoon, we're going to twist everything together, and I promise you the end message will come back to rocket power for Brycey. But it's a group of kids, it's a cartoon obviously, they live in California, they love skating, doing everything, and everything that they do seems like things work out when they actually plan it accordingly and ask the right people, and then put the work in. And when they run into their troubles, it's when they just go off and they try to do things on their own. So, I promise you, Bryce, I'll get back to rocket power at the end, but the title today is going to be entitled Mission Possible.
Possible?
Possible. So, how does all this rocket power or anything tie in? It's simple. If you're on a mission, then you have a clear objective and want to accomplish something. See, a huge flaw and struggle amongst us is that we just kind of go through life with no clear objective and no focus, which minimizes their impact. That's why mission statements are so important, because they provide us a focus. So, pop quiz, and I don't even necessarily know it, but does anyone know our mission statement?
No, why don't you read
Anybody?
it?
Anybody? Okay. Honor God and do anything short of sin to lead others to Christ. To do this, we'll lead the way in generosity, share the word of Jesus with pride, build relationships, and be known in the community. We don't exist simply to honor God on Sunday mornings. That's important, but our church exists to bring the word of God to others outside the walls, so we can be a blessing to the world. So it's a little lengthy, but wanted to make sure we really touch base on everything that happened. Yeah, it's on the back of the postcard, so someone could have cheated. Someone could have really shined on that one. And so now we're going to do a little bit of, see what you guys have for knowledge history over here. Because I was doing some research, and I found a couple of cool operations from World War II that I had no idea about. So, has anyone ever heard about Operation Fortitude South? Anybody? No? Okay. So I'm going to read these verbatim so I don't mess it up, but there's two that I want to talk about because I thought they were kind of cool. So D-Day was the largest land invasions in military history, but it was preceded by an equally elaborate campaign of subterfuge known as Operation Fortitude South. Spearheaded by the British, Fortitude South was a ruse designed to deceive the Germans into thinking the Allies would make landfall in France at the Pas de Salas instead of Normandy. To help salve this con, the Allies created a fictitious invasion force known as the 1st U.S. Army Group and fed the Germans phony intelligence suggesting that Phantom Army would lead the charge on the Pas de Salas. Operatives used inflatable tanks, wooden airplanes, and dummy fuel depots to trick reconnaissance pilots into believing the 1st U.S. Army Group was assembled in Kent, England, the most likely staging ground for an attack. To top it all off, they even placed the much-feared General George Patton in charge of the fake army to lend an additional air of authenticity. The operation continued even after the Allies launched their invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944. Aircraft focused many of their bombing runs on the Pas de Salas instead of Normandy, and double agents worked to convince the Germans the D-Day invasion was merely a feint designed to screen a second, larger offensive from the south. The swarm of contradictory reports, bluffs, and misdirects ultimately had the intended effect. When the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy, the Germans had a large concentration of troops languishing at the Pas de Salas, waiting for an assault that never came. How about Operation Mincemeat? Anybody heard that one? This one was Operation Mincemeat. This one was kind of my favorite one. You did?
Feels like it.
Do you want to try to fill us in before I go?
I can't remember.
Okay. In April 1943, the waterlogged corpse of British Royal Marine was found floating off the coast of Spain. The dead Brit had a suspicious-looking attaché case chained to his wrist, and this soon caught the attention of the Germans, who colluded with pro-Nazi elements in the Spanish military to gain access to its contents. Inside, they found a shocking letter to the British officer in Tunisia outlining a secret Allied scheme to stage an invasion of Sardinia in Greece in the coming weeks. The dead man's documents would have been a major intelligence coup for the Nazis, if not for one small issue. They were all fakes. As part of a plan dubbed Operation Mincemeat, British spy masters addressed the body of a deceased tramp in the guise of a fictitious Allied courier named William Martin. After the corpse's briefcase was stuffed with phony military plans, a Royal Navy submarine secretly deposited the body off Spain in the hope it might hoodwink the Nazis. The result was a perfect con. Not only did Germans intercept what they believed to be crucial information about where the Allies would attack the Mediterranean, they were convinced it had done so without tipping off the British. Duped by Operation Mincemeat's bogus intelligence, Hitler diverted tank division and other personnel to Greece, only to be caught off guard in July of 1943 when the Allies instead invaded Sicily and Italy with some 160,000 troops. So I just thought those random stories were just kind of cool, because I don't remember really hearing about them. I like when they kind of come from the names. So that led me to do a little bit more prep, because this whole thing is on kind of like a mission focus. So I looked to see kind of like what the military did to deem, to have a successful mission. One of the first things that they do is that they determine what success is going to look like. And that's something that we could all focus on along the way, right? Because if we just say, like, we're going to lose weight, or we're going to get a better job, or we're going to save money, it's not necessarily enough as opposed to saying, like, I'm going to lose 15 pounds. Because then you have, let's say, that success to me is 15 pounds. Success to me is, you guys know one of my goals is to finish something, is to run a half marathon. That's going to be success to me. So in April, I've signed up for that as a way to say that I've achieved what I wanted to get to. So for someone else, it might be, like I said, saving $3,000. Whatever it may be, you need to determine what success is going to look like. What? He might. So basically, because you need to have the goal, because otherwise, if you don't necessarily accomplish it, failure can kind of be discouraging along the way. The other thing that they do in missions is they go over all the possibilities and outcomes. This all comes with planning, right? Like, we need to know kind of like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. It's like with bidding on a house, for example. If you bid lower, there's a possibility someone's going to outbid you. If you bid too high, well, your mortgage payment's going to be higher. So go over all the possibilities and outcomes. This one is my favorite one, and we talked about this last week, but they know their strengths and weaknesses, and you surround yourself with a team. Right? We kind of talked about this, because nobody's perfect. Like, when it comes Sunday mornings, I know that my prayer game could use some work, so I have my dad who steps up every week and talks about praying, and so you kind of know, like, what your strengths are. I don't mind talking in front of people, so I don't mind doing this part of it, but, taking a prayer request and doing it necessarily meaningfully, it's not where my strength lies. So know what your strength is, find someone whose strength is your weakness, surround yourself with that person, and that's going to help. This next one, with all the kids in the room, I think the Army goal works out really well, is be prepared for change, because, well, nothing goes according to plan. It doesn't seem like ever does that happen. So, and I've been guilty of, I'm going to be somewhere at this time, and that doesn't happen, and I get super miserable about it, because we want things, we can't help it, it's our nature. We want to just go ahead and just do things accordingly, that's the way it is. But the reality is that, like in military operations, what's going to happen if it's raining out that day, for example, and the operation happens? Are you going to go the same way, or are you going to do something different? Practice. This one was my favorite because, with anything, you only get better at it if you do it more often. And sticking to the military theme, I was reminded of the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound, and the amount of time and effort that they put into that raid. Like, they had a whole practice compound, and they went over it, time and time again, to what door do we go through, and if he's in this room, what do we do here? And, if you don't practice something, it's like reading the Bible. If you don't read the Bible often, if you don't practice being a good Christian, if you don't practice trying not to swear, we're not going to get anywhere. The last part, and then we're going to get into the biblical context of it, is that the military always has an after-action review plan. So when you complete something, take a minute and go over it. What went good? What went bad? One of the things I like to do is kind of ask people like afterwards, and it's kind of tough sometimes, but when you get done preaching, like, what did you think of it? Like, not saying necessarily looking to praise. I'd love for you guys to say, hey, you're awesome, but if you say like it was okay, but why don't you work on this? And that's kind of like something that we all need to get better on, because none of us like criticism, but the reality is that when you have those after action reviews for whatever it is, my dad can attest, working in the old nuclear industry, you always review something, what worked, what didn't work, and you find out, like, if you change just this little bit, it could make all the difference in the world. So, with any military operation, kind of going back to the first point, is everything had to go through a chain of command. Imagine if these guys just went off and they just did their operation, right, without actually going through their commander. It would be probably pretty crazy. So, do you ever notice, though, how that can happen to us along the way when we try to do things on our own? When we don't trust God along the way? It doesn't go very well often, does it? So we're going to dive into 2 Samuel 5:17 through 25, talking about my boy David, who managed to never lose a military battle, which is incredibly impressive. Just a little bit of a backstory. The Philistine oppression of Israel had begun in the days of Samson, and the Philistines were Israel's most powerful enemy. Although David was once considered a friendly ally, because he occupied much of Israel's northern territory, they apparently didn't bother David while he was the king of Judah to the south. But once they learned he was planning to unite all of Israel, they planned to stop him. And so we're going to talk about this particular battle. Sorry, I can't really talk today. So 2 Samuel 5:17 through 25. When the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel, they went up in full force to search for him. But David heard about it and went down the stronghold. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I go and attack the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hands?" The Lord answered him, "Go, for I will surely deliver the Philistines in your hands." So David went to Baal-perazim, and there he defeated them. He said, "As the water breaks out, the Lord has broken out against my enemies before me." So that place was called Baal-perazim. As the Philistines abandoned their idols there, and David and his men carried them off. Once more the Philistines came up, and they spread out in the valley of Rephaim. I can't pronounce that word, I'm probably butchering it. So David inquired of the Lord, and he answered, "Do not go straight up, but circle around behind them, and attack them in front of the poplar trees. As soon as you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the poplar trees, move quickly, because that'll mean the Lord has gone out in front of you to strike the Philistines' army." So David did as the Lord commanded, and he struck down the Philistines from Gibeon to Gezer. So, kind of took some notes as far as how David operated and how we can really make sure that, we're successful. First, David surrounded himself with good people and asked questions. We kind of talked about that before, but, he's got, didn't talk about in this particular text, but David had the 12, and he, with those guys, they were the guys that kind of really kept him in check along the way. They were some of his great warriors. And so David surrounded himself with people that were willing to at times say, "David, you're being an idiot. Like, you need to stop doing that." He might not always listen, but he's got those people. And I know that comes up almost every week, but I just think it's one of the most important things that we can do is not surround ourselves with yes people, but surround ourselves with the good people. David always prayed about everything. As you noticed in this case, "Lord, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to complete this attack?" And that's huge for us because if you notice, some of the dumbest decisions we make are ones that we think that we're making, with God's help, but we're not. And so I kind of look to, I'll get to that in a minute, but he followed God's instructions no matter how weird it sounded along the way. And so that's a tough pill for us to swallow as we go throughout our mission of life, really, is following God's direction sometimes because it seems crazy. It's, hey, you got that extra $100, why don't you put it in the offering plate this week? Or, hey, you've got this going on, why don't you take the day off from work and go help and serve in the food pantry? Or, hey, why don't you quit your job and go do this? Or, whatever it is, David followed God's direction, and he started by praying about it along the way. And when we're talking to God constantly and trusting him, it's much easier to follow the direction, as crazy as it seemed. And then, most importantly, David gave God all the glory when it was done. And, that's, again, one of the kind of, I know that sounds simple, but how often do we not be like, yeah, thank God I got this job, and actually mean thank God, instead of we're like, yeah, we're so lucky. It's not luck, guys. We've got God on our side with it, but if we're being honest, we're all very guilty of being like, oh, man, yeah, lucky that coin just passed for Peyton along the way, or, we're really lucky that Val was home, and when Troy fell, that he didn't hurt his head longer, or, it's not luck. It's God having his hand in it all, but we just need to really just understand that. So, instead of being like, yeah, I was lucky, be like, yeah, thank God my wife was there that day. And we're like, oh, yeah, no, really, thank God. Like, it could have gone so much worse along the way. Now, we manage to fail when we do things the way we want and ignore the Bible. And I've been guilty of that, and I've been kind of paying for that a little bit along the way with just, searching for vehicles. You make a couple impulsive decisions, and then you kind of end up underwater a little bit along the way, and then your next vehicle payment's higher. Why? Because I'm impulsive, and I like to try to make decisions quickly. And everyone's smiling at me in the family. I swear people love that I preach now just because I'm more honest about things. So, but if you notice, if you just say like, did you pray about it? Yeah. Did you really? Nope. And then what happens? Decisions you end up making because you didn't wait that extra day. Talk about when we were really becoming a parent and we realized we needed to buy a van, and now I love it. But anyways, we had looked at one van, and my dad had told me after, and I was praying about it at this point, but we were at a particular dealership, and he said, I'm always under the impression, just wait one more day, and then you'll know if it'll work out or not. Not only had been nagging me about it, but I don't like to listen to her all the time. But then my dad said, just wait another day, and I was still ready to sign on the dotted line that day, but I decided, let's wait another day. And then we got a call from another dealership, and they got us a vehicle that was 2 years newer for less price along the way. So, as annoying as that is, when we actually do pray, and we actually do listen, things work out. We fail when we want to do things our own way. And then, most importantly, I think we fail when we take the glory ourselves and give it to others and not God. And I think that's a huge part about it. Talking about football, it's football weekend, and unfortunately I didn't hear it, but when Case Keenum threw that amazing pass and the Vikings won the game, at the end of the report, they said, was this the greatest moment? Yeah, as soon as he said, no, my first greatest moment of my life was giving my life to the Lord. The second was marrying my wife, and the third is this. So he had that moment, and he could have been like, yeah, my receivers, it was the greatest thing of all time, it was the best moment. I'm sure it's right up there, but he, right out of the gate, he gave it to God. Say what you want about Tim Tebow, but people hated him because he would always make sure that he glorified God with what was going on. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're glorifying God. So I guess the ultimate, most important point of the sermon is ask God and you do His commands. You don't question it and do it. And I wanted just to kind of do one more biblical story. I didn't write down. Oh, that was bad. I didn't write down the verse, but it's something verse 36. It says, in Joppa there was a disciple named Tabitha. In Greek, her name is Dorcas. She was always doing good and helping the poor. So there's few personal details about her in the Bible. And it doesn't state whether she was single, married, widowed, rich, or poor, or whether she has children. But one verse revealed something important about her. She always did good. She was full of good works and charitable deeds, which she did. To paraphrase, Tabitha was a Christian woman who thoroughly full of many good deeds and also charitable work for the poor, for whom she had active compassion and tender mercy. See, she was well known by the widows because she sewed tunics and garments. And in those days, ordering and purchasing materials, cutting, assembling, fitting, altering, and sewing was really hard work. But she willingly gave her time and her effort for it because she had prayed to God and she knew that's what she was supposed to be doing. So Tabitha knew her mission because she had a relationship with God. She had done it all. It might have seemed like something crazy, but I mean, heck, she got mentioned in the Bible, so she must have been pretty important along the way, right? So that's what we need to do. We need to, act like David when we're making decisions, when we're doing anything, when it's simple things like, prayer time at dinner, make it a priority along the way, or, it's kind of cool. Bryce every night now wants to read a devotional, and that's 3 years old, and that's what he wants to do. And but it just starts with being intentional with what you're doing, and that's what having that action report, creating, like, this is what we want to do. This is my end goal. I want Bryce as a child to grow up to love God, accept him into his heart, and have church be a place that he doesn't just go to and, by the time he turns 17, 18, has a choice he doesn't want to go to again. I need to live my life intentionally that way. And so, for moms, for grandparents, for aunts, for uncles, I challenge you to, live intentionally that way, so that way people want to be here. They want to learn about God's Word along the way.
Pray, say, do. Pray, say, do.
I don't know that.
Pray it,
Mm-hmm.
then say it, then do it.
I told you. I'm good. I told my mom that she needs to preach one week along the way, because she's always giving me the phone sermons, so we should always pray, and then one day she says, you know what, Travis, I want you to take the Sunday off, and you're going to be the one to preach. So, we're going to face opposition, like David did from the Philistines, and it may even come from friends and family. Heck, let's be honest, we faced some pretty serious opposition when we said, we all feel like it's time to leave our respective churches and start something different. People say, you're crazy, or why are you doing this, or why are you breaking up the church, or whatever. But the reality is that we have all prayed over all this. I mean, how this all started. Felt like it was time to leave the church that we were at, and we were searching for months. And then I had thought maybe the call was to go one direction. And then I get a text literally like out of the blue from Sherry, and she asked what we were doing. Now, I don't think that was an out of the blue text. I think that was God saying, here's an opportunity for all of us to grow. So no matter what happens from this, we're all growing, in one way, shape, or form. Be it, being more boldly to say, hey, let's come to church where we wouldn't have done it before, or working on more preaching, or praying out loud, or maybe someone preaching for the first time. She's not listening over there. But anyway, you.
I'm listening.
Parents can do that. They can do two things. Mothers can do.
The bottom line
Wait a
is,
minute, I was thinking, as you were saying that I said to Dad this morning, now we watched Dr. Jeremiah and Charles, and I said, had we not been being fed at church, we would probably not have been searching for things on TV to watch. So God even used that for His good for us, because we turned somewhere else to get what we were lacking, and otherwise we probably wouldn't have done that, because, well, we're going to church, we don't need to sit and watch an hour and a half of this before we go to church. Well, so I am listening.
so how many people have heard this? If God calls you to it, He'll see you through it. That's the bottom line. So we just need to listen to His advice, not our own, not anybody else's, God's advice. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Then, when things work out, give Him the glory. If they don't work out exactly as expected, you better give Him the glory, because if you're listening to God, it just means He has different plans. So, Jason Gray, one of his songs says, I can't lose if I'm still learning. And so I think that's how we really need to approach, because is it really a failure if it didn't go exactly how you planned it? I don't think so. I think it's God saying, along the way, the mission is greater than just Operation Mincemeat. The mission is, World War II victory overall. So I think sometimes, we get discouraged immediately because it didn't go exactly as planned. But the reality is, if you learn from that, then the plan is so much greater still along the way. Just like closing with, I told you I'd bring it back to Rocket Power. With all the tricks and stuff they do, they took a lot of bumps and bruises along the way with their skateboarding and everything else, but they learned from that fall. They learned how to do that. They learned, I want to learn how to do this particular trick. They practice, and then eventually they got there. And that's what we need to understand, is that, we need to practice what we're preaching. We need to practice religion. It's not just, it's an adjective. It's a verb. We need to go out and do it. And that's how we're all going to get better at it. Just like Otto and Twister got better at their skateboarding because they practiced it. We need to practice. This book has to be living in everything that we do, and we need to make that our mission. So let's pray.
And if you do fail, keep going. If you know in your heart that it's meant to be, keep giving it to God and keep going for it. I applied for this job twice, and I got denied twice, and all of a sudden the third time, kept praying about it, and all of a sudden the door opened. So just keep your eye on it, keep bringing it up, and you're going to get through it.
And Troy, to his credit, the first text message that he gave to my mom Wasn't even, I got the job. It was, what did it say, Mom?
God is good.
First thing that he said. So, give the praise, trust him, you know? We talk about, not necessarily knowing what's going on. Troy and I are both at the new plant, and we both decided it was time to leave. Like, first, the door, they say they're gonna announce it. Thank the Lord they did keep it open, because it'd be terrible for the economy, but it got Troy out, it got me out. I'm doing what I enjoy. Troy started, he got his foot in the door with an associate's degree, working at a company, and now he's gonna be working subcontracted under the government. And he could have given up after applying twice, but for whatever reason, Troy decided, he got denied twice, heck with it, I'm going for time number 3.
That's right.
And time number 3 was the time. So our mission is so much greater, and we can't just give up, because that's what God wants. Or not God wants, I apologize. That's what the devil wants. The devil wants us just to give up immediately. So, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for allowing us to be able to gather. Thank you again so much for this warmth. I can't thank you for that enough. Thank you for your word, and I just pray that you help us, all of us, as we go throughout our week this week, just to really live our lives missionally for you, and just understand that we can't do it on our own. We need to trust you along the way, and just really pray to you and give you the glory when things go right, God, and just help us all throughout this week just to have the strength and just reach out to people if needed, God, and just pray that you just be with us all. Amen.